Here he goes, he winds up Buddy. 8 or not? Yes! 8 is great for Buddy Franklin. The siren sounds on the Swans' first win. They've had to wait 7 weeks longer than they thought, but the great Buddy Franklin has led the way. Another fantastic display. It's our pleasure to watch you, Bud.
After a fantastic win on the weekend, we come to team selection and we're given a shock. Callum Mills is out for the season with a broken foot. What on earth is going on with these boys at the club?
He was walking back from the cafe at Sydney Footy Stadium here this afternoon after training, tripped and fell and broke his foot. So really unfortunate accident, and unfortunately has an operation on Monday and he'll be out for the rest of the year. It's a bad break and something out of the blue and something disappointing. Something really disappointing obviously for him and us.
This is a Swans Blog's SwansCast Extra, the #1 Sydney Swans fans weekend preview podcast. In this week's episode, we will preview the Swans match against the Brisbane Lions at the Gabba. We'll discuss Callum Mills' shock injury. We'll discuss what we're looking forward to, matchups, key points, team changes, and we'll give our predictions and weekend forecast. I'm Justin Mitchell, and with me is Stephen Park, SwansCast regular. Stephen, Callum Mills' injury, it's a bit of a shock, isn't it?
It is an enormous shock. I just dropped, my mouth dropped when I read about it, Justin. I cannot believe it. How silly is it that we've had 2 players in 2 seasons that have been doing something stupid and then got injured? Not even on the football field.
Yes.
And 2 severe injuries.
Yeah, the last one was Dane Rampey trying to hurdle a fence and he tripped over and broke his arm. This one, I think, is an even bigger impact because he's not coming back for the season.
No, that's exactly right. It sounds like, from all the reports that I've just recently read, that he's actually shattered bones in his foot.
If he's done that, if he's really badly injured, that's a shocking injury. The funny thing was, the agenda was actually going to be about the renaming of Etihad to Marvel Stadium, which is going to kick off September, October this year, which is probably a really good thing. But now, yeah, that's like water under the bridge with Callum Mills. He's been having a pretty good season, and to do something like this, I don't think the club's going to be happy about it. They're definitely going to have a word to their players about their, I guess, conduct and behaviour away from the ground.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I understand they're young, boys will be boys, they're still only really teenagers. But the fact that they do these things and then they get themselves injured, throw a gridiron ball around on a football field, have a bit of fun. Be larrikins, but you don't do it so you can injure yourself.
Oh, there's Moore Park, which is right across the road from the stadium anyway. Literally, you can just walk 50 metres out of the door and into the Moore Park, and you're there. You can kick the ball around, you can throw the gridiron, you can do all that where it's nice and safe. It's just unbelievable, really. I'm a bit like yourself. I got the alert on Twitter, and I'm like, oh, okay, Sydney Swans teams are out. Callum Mills out with a broken foot. What? This can't be real.
Yeah. You remember, I don't know whether you remember, Justin, there was a few years ago, Glenn McGrath did it in the Ashes series. And he tried on a cricket ball when they were kicking the footy around. It's the same thing. It cost Australia the series. And this could cost us severely in the run home to the finals. Because there's no doubt about it, he's a gun backman for us. And he uses the ball well.
Yeah, the Swans have brought in Harry Marsh. I guess we can continue on with this and also talk about the changes at the same time. They've brought in Harry Marsh as a like-for-like replacement for Callum Mills. Myself, it seems to be an okay selection, but kind of makes me wonder, and I know you're going to raise this point yourself about Nick Newman, but also for Aliir. Like, where are they both at the moment? If they can't even get games, when Malikan's out injured, Callum Mills is out for the season, we're playing our tallest defender's 192, and we've been doing it now for 3-4 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I just don't understand it. Aliir, I can understand. I don't think he's travelling as well as what I would like. Nick Newman, there is something going on. What did he have last week? 38 possessions, 2 goals or 1 goal, and are going at 82% efficiency. Now, come on.
Yeah, he's killing it in the NEFL at the moment.
Yeah, now if there's something going on, and like the club has every right not to tell us, but there is either A, he's leaving and he's gone at the end of the year, whatever happens now, or B, he's being disciplined severely for something.
Yeah, that would seem like the more logical conclusion, I think, because it just seems so unlikely that Like, there is discussion, obviously, in rumours that he's going. There's discussion, rumours he's going to Adelaide or Melbourne or any other location really away from the Swans. But it does seem more likely, or at least more feasible, that he is being punished for something. What it is, we don't know. Clubs rarely speak about it. Sometimes I reckon Collingwood is probably about the only club who actually discuss sanctions and what they're for. Sydney never discuss any of that. So it's just an interesting situation, really, with Newman. And I know you're a Newman fan. I'm an Aliir fan. I just think that it's the way he's being sort of managed all round. It's just so baffling. He's being played in about 5 positions every week in the NEFL, and he still can't even get a look in any of them. It's just it's baffling, really, for me.
Yeah, and the thing with Aliir is, why wouldn't you put him in a position and leave him there? I can understand if the Swans reserves and the NEFL team were getting either flogged every week and he was a forward, you'd move him around, or they were winning every week by 100 points and he was a backman, you'd move him around. But that's not the case. It's been fairly competitive and consistent. They lost the first 5 or 6 games this year.
Yeah, they did,
and they've just beaten the top team. So why wouldn't you have him in a structured position so he actually learns that position and he plays only there until he's up to form? And that makes me wonder again.
I suspect this week he's definitely going to be in a key position role, given that Harry Marsh is now in the seniors. They don't really have any other options back in the reserves for those kind of tall rebounding players. He is a reasonably tall player, and I think maybe that height gets a little bit misused in that he's tall enough to be a key position defender, but he's more like a really tall Callum Mills or an even taller Harry Marsh. He is exquisite at reading the ball and intercepting the ball, but his foot skills and hand skills are arguably elite anyway. So it's kind of like, should he even be considered as, a fullback or centre-half back? I'm not sure.
Yeah, the only thing I worry about is his height actually makes him a good player for, that centre-half back or fullback position. The problem is, I don't think he has the body strength to play them. And he could be your third tall, but I just don't think his reading of the play is actually at the standard that we would need to do it. And that's where it becomes an issue. I think back to a few of those games he played last year where his decision-making under pressure just wasn't there. And that's what worries me about Aliir's actual structure. But until he actually is put in that position and left there consistently, he'll never get that. If he's moved into the ruck, if he's moved to the forward line, if he's moved onto the wing like he was last week, what's the point?
Yeah, agree. And I guess you can level the same thing against Newman. Newman's being shuffled around the field. He's still having massive impact. He's playing primarily just as an on-baller at the moment. Maybe he's just not hitting the KPIs. I don't know, but I would think that the most likely thing is that he's actually being punished. And the amazing thing is neither of those players are named as emergencies either. So Stoddart comes in, he's debuting, which is great. It's really good to actually get him in. And he has been really good in NEFL for a while now. Him and Ling, they were pretty much in the top 5-6 players almost every week since the start of the season. And Harry Marsh, obviously, he's coming in. Now, he comes in for Gary Rowan, who's been omitted. Probably, I say teetering on the edge of deserved. He hasn't been in great form for a while, and he certainly hasn't been troubling the scoreboard. But he's always been trying. He's always, trying his heart out. He just kind of looked last week like might be time to sort of give him a break in the reserve competition.
I can tell you one thing, Justin. He's been trying my patience. I have been calling for weeks for that Gary Rowan should be playing back in the reserves. Now, rightly or wrongly, what has happened to him as a person is a tragedy.
Yeah.
The way he's been playing his football and the way he has played his football is actually ludicrous. And the reason I say that, I've actually done some stats and I've looked into it. Gary Rowan, that he's played, for someone who's played more than 50 games, he has the worst disposals of any Swans player that's ever played in the forward half of the ground.
That's the unfortunate bit, isn't it?
That's right. For any forward player that's ever played in the Sydney Swans forward half of the ground. Now that's scary.
Yeah. The upside is that even though he might only have 9 or 10 disposals, he can sometimes have those games where those 9 or 10 disposals and he turns it into an absolute blinder, Cyril Rioli-like. But Yeah, it's kind of pretty far in between those sorts of matches. I'm thinking back to the Suns last year when he had an absolute blinder. Hawks a couple of years ago when he kicked 5 as well. He basically has one of those games a season. He actually had a couple last season, but this season he's been a bit off. And yeah, he has had a fair bit happening in his personal life. So, look, I think it's time to move on to the match that's coming up on the weekend, Brisbane Lions.
Yes, let's go Swannies for this one.
Yeah, I'm on the Swanies as well. Hopefully they win this one. But I'll go through a bit of history between the sides just real quick, and then we'll move on to some matchups and whatnot. So the Swans have actually dominated the head-to-head between the sides absolutely conclusively. It is amazing, really. From 34 matches, the Swans with 22 wins and 1 draw and 11 losses. But more importantly, in the recent history, they have won 18 of the last 21 games, including a draw back in round 20, 2009, Stephen.
That is pretty good, isn't it?
Now, there is another stat that I wasn't aware of until I dug it up. The Swans have kicked 7 first-quarter goals in 3 of their last 5 matches against the Lions, and I think 3 of those matches are actually at the Gabba.
The way they are playing this year, it's a very high-scoring game, and there's not a lot of defence. So,
yeah.
Or defensive pressure. So I can see it just being a rebounding bang, bang, bang both ways.
It's a fair point, actually, because when you look at both teams, Swans actually have only plus 16 rebound 50s and plus 29 inside 50s. Both sides they're across the board, they're actually pretty close.
Yeah, I agree. And when you look at it as a possibility, I reckon Brisbane would have to be the unluckiest 1-9 side, or 1-8 side, sorry. In any time I've ever watched AFL, and I've been watching for, 31 years now, they are really, really unlucky because they've lost 3 games by under 7 points. They've been competitive in almost every game they've played. And the structure of their back line and the way they move the ball forward is actually very Hawthorn-like.
Yeah, it is. They like to attack it as well, so when they get a bit of space, they just like to go fast and direct. And we saw that against Hawthorn last week. They absolutely tore them to bits. And Brisbane pretty much ended up being the main topic on the last podcast, mainly because they were so damn good. It's funny that we actually play them the week after. A couple of other interesting stats is the fact that the last win that Brisbane Lions had against the Swans was back in round 3, 2009 at the Gabba. And their last win was round 22, 2009. So both of those back in 2009. That round 22 match was at the SCG. Now, the Swans have won the last 10 by an average of 44 points, and the last 5 at the Gabba by 41 points. And the closest game was 2 seasons ago in Aliir's debut when the Swans won by 3. Can't remember who it was, but they kicked a goal after the siren to bring it back to 3 points. So, Stephen, would you like to give us your first key matchup of the game?
This is one, and whoever wins this one around the ground will go a long way to helping their team win. And it is the Callum Sinclair versus Stephen Martin matchup.
Yeah, I like it.
The 2 ruckmen. Stephen Martin is averaging over 40 hit-outs a game.
Yep.
He is going really, really well. But the thing that Stephen Martin's got in his favour is he's very, very good around the ground, just like Callum Sinclair has been. So whoever wins or gets on top around the ground will go a long way to their team actually going really well in the midfield, I think.
He's also a very physical player as well. I wouldn't say he's as agile as Callum Sinclair, but he's still very good around the ground, and he quite often racks up 15, 18 plus disposals per match with his 40-odd hitouts. He's definitely probably top 3, top 4 ruckman in the league, and he can certainly give Gawn a run for his money. He's beaten Gawn before, and I actually really like what he does. Callum Sinclair's been really good this season, so it's going to be a massive challenge, Stephen, for them in particular, but for Callum Sinclair as well. Yeah,
I agree totally, and the sad thing is I actually quite like Stephen Martin, and I'd love to have him at the Swans. So I hope Sinclair gets on top of him, but I'm not so sure he will this time round.
Yeah, I would expect a hit-out differential in the negative, but hopefully he gets some in clearances and hard ball gets and things like that, which would be considered a win, I would say.
I would agree with that, totally. And what about your first key matchup, Justin?
Now, I've gone for a slightly different one. It's because I don't think Hewitt is the right matchup for him. So I've gone actually Dane Zorko versus Kieran Jack. I think Kieran Jack's going to play a running role this week. I think Hewitt might switch between some of the other players, or he might play a more forward role. So I reckon Kieran Jack's going to have Zorko. And Zorko at the moment is arguably top 3, top 4 players in the league. I would have him in current form as probably 1 or 2 in the league. And probably by some fair margin as well. Stephen, what do you think of Zorko's season so far?
I think he started off slowly in the first couple of weeks, but over the last few weeks, he is just going great guns. And
he's destroying it.
Yeah, didn't I read that he's now the interim captain for Brisbane as of this week?
And he also moved up to AFL ratings rank 4. So only Lance Franklin from the Swans is ahead of him. That's how good he is at the moment. Career high.
Yeah, he's going really well. Was it last week or the week before he kicked 5 or 6 goals?
Oh, I'm not quite sure. He bagged 3 last week. Against the Dogs. It might have been against the Dogs or the game before, but he kicked 3 against the Dogs, I think. So he's been absolutely ridiculous in form.
Yeah, he's a gun player, and I agree that I think Kieran Jack would match up well against him. I just don't know whether Kieran Jack's got the tank to run with him anymore. That might be the issue.
Yeah. They might rotate Jack, Hanbury, Jones, even Papley, Hewitt. I don't know, Hewitt might go to him. You never know. You never really know. Now, Stephen, who is your second matchup?
This one, I think, could be quite interesting, especially after what he did to Mr. Sicily last week. Mitch Robinson versus Josh Kennedy.
I love it.
Yep. So I loved what he did to Sicily last week. I thought it was quite good and really well done. The fake trip straight on top of him. But
on his head, pretty much.
Yeah, straight onto his head. But I think he could actually be a key matchup for Josh Kennedy because he does niggle and he niggles and he niggles and he loves to mouth.
Yeah.
So I think that will be the one that the tag that Josh Kennedy will need to break early on, because if Mitch Robinson gets on top of you, he gets very, very cocky very quickly.
And he's the right size as well, and he's a really strong player, and he's quite athletic. I think a lot of people might miss that. He might not be the fastest player across the ground, but he is a very athletic player, and he has a massive tank as well.
And he's highly underrated. Highly underrated.
He's the kind of player, like when you think back to when Kirk started, that guy who just busted his guts. He wasn't an exceptional player, but he just busted his guts every week. That's exactly what Mitch Robinson is.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yes, me too. And your second key matchup, Justin?
Look, I did have a bit of a think about this one, and I was leaning towards Hipwood Rampy for obvious reasons, because Hipwood is in good form at the moment. But they do have a bit of a barometer in the side, and for me, that's Charlie Cameron. And the only player who, could have been Callum Mills before, but it ain't going to be him now, can only be Mr. Nick Smith, the small defender extraordinaire. He has to take him, and he has to do a really big number on him. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure the Swans will be comfortable enough, or it could be a really close game.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great matchup. The only thing that worries me about poor Nicky Smith is Charlie Cameron's got a bloody leap on him. Did you see that mark last week?
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, and Nick Smith just needs to blanket him. And if he can blanket Charlie Cameron out of the game, I think that'll be really good for us. And if we can keep him from getting a bit cocky and arrogant as well, that will keep the Brisbane Lions under wraps.
Yeah, they might even rotate Jones back on him, or even play McVeigh. But I do remember back when he was at Adelaide, Nick Smith kind of switched between Cameron and Betts, and he did a pretty good job on both. So I'm still confident that he can do a good job. He's certainly done a really good job on Rioli in the past, despite the fact that Rioli absolutely kills him in straight line pace. So I am pretty confident he can get the job done. Now, Stephen, do you have some stats from the matchups and how Swans and Lions kind of fare head-to-head?
Yes, I do. So, this one is for our old mate Buddy. Mr. Franklin loves playing against the Lions. It's probably one of his favourite teams. He's kicked 56 goals against them in 14 games for the Hawks and the Swans at an average of 4 a match. He's had 3 bags of 6 or more goals against them. So that's outstanding, really. So if he gets on fire, I think we could go big time here, and I actually am tipping a Buddy onslaught of, remember the big Buddy 13? 13! I'm hoping
you even had Hutto doing
8
8 is great last year as well, right on the final siren.
Yeah, and I would love to see Buddy come out and kick a bag full. I
Yep.
don't know whether it'll happen, but that's my ideal dream for this week.
Yep. Now, I would think that Isaac Heaney, if he can back up from what he did last year, he actually had a really good game against the Lions last year. If he can back it up again, and he can lead the Swans midfield, because Josh Kennedy and Luke Parker, their form's been a bit wavering. Same with Hanbury, so I would say, yeah, Heaney. I'd say go another 7 clearances like he did last time, pick up 22, 24 disposals, and maybe get a goal or two. I think that's going to help us a lot. He is up against, well, he is at least named against Lewis Taylor, but I think he's going to rotate quite a lot through the midfield and spend a lot of time in the mid.
Yep, good call. I think he will actually do that, and I think we need to be very mindful that Mr. Heaney might take a very big pack mark this week as well.
It'd be great to take it over Luke Hodge.
Oh, yeah, how good would that be? Yeah.
Or Ben Ronk just snaps one over his shoulder on Luke Hodge. That'd be fantastic. Anything on Luke Hodge I'm happy with.
Yeah. You can't knock Hodgie too much.
Yeah. Now, do you have another key point?
I do. This one is, I actually think Dane Beams will come out and have an extremely strong game this week. After giving up the captaincy and after all the stuff that's been going on with his family issues, I just think this release of pressure will actually allow him to get back to playing his best football. He is a gun. I really like Dane Beams, and I actually think he needs to have a great game just for his own self-confidence, not because it's against us. I don't like that. But for him as a player and as a person, it'd just be good to see him have a good game.
Yeah, he is a good player, and he has gone through a lot of injuries, and not really off the field, but on-field issues. Certainly with injuries in his body, it's let him down quite a lot, actually. I'm not sure how many games he's played for Brisbane since he moved from Collingwood. It's not really anywhere near as much as he should have been able to. Just unfortunately, he's been hobbled by injuries so much.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Because
if you know about his... Sorry, keep going.
If he gets off the chain, and especially if he's killing it with Zorko, it's going to be a hard game for the Swans.
Yeah, and the other thing is, not only has there been his injuries, which it is going to be a hard game, but you know about the family things with his father and all those that actually came up, and that's why he had to get rid of the captaincy. So I say good luck to him. I hope he doesn't have an outstanding game, but I hope in other ways that he does for his own sake.
Yeah, agreed.
And Justin, do you have any more key points that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, look, I kind of thought about it as a matchup, but I'm looking at Dane Rampy really has to lead that backline in Callum Mills' absence, and he's got to do a really good job on Hipwood. Hipwood's been in pretty good nick. He's leading a lot, he's attacking a lot of contests, and he's taken some really good marks, and he's getting some goals as well, and he looked genuinely threatening against the Hawks last week. Hodge was pretty good in defence, but Hipwood, I think, was one of the heroes of the match for them. So Rampy's going to have to really be on his game top-notch. He's a big boy too, so he's going to have to Ben Brown him. He's going to have to body up and not take his arms, but take his body where legal. So that is going to be a massive matchup in my mind.
Yeah, and he's only young too, isn't he? He's not very old at all.
21, 22, I think.
22. Yeah, so imagine what he's going to be like when he hits 24, 25 and he actually develops.
Yeah, exactly. He kind of reminds me a bit like Sam Reid very early on, but he's like that kind of tall, skinny, athletic kind of player. But I don't think that's where the comparison continues, because he's a bit taller than him. He's 202 centimeters, so
yes,
he's a massive
boy.
kid. Yeah, he's 20 years old. Sorry, 20 years old in his third season, 30 games. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a big challenge.
Yes, it will be, and I hope Dane Rampy does a great job on him, because Rampy's been going well, but I don't think he's had as good a season this year as what he has the last two.
Yeah, agree. I think that's just because of the changes in the backline. The fact that he's basically taking the number one forward from now on instead of Grundy.
Yeah, I agree with you there. He's actually changed his position. Like last year, and probably the previous couple of years, he's always been, I guess, the third man up, and he's always been the spoiler and taken the intercept marks. Whereas this year, he actually seems to be more playing on an opponent, and then Grundy's taken a lot of those intercept marks.
Yeah, exactly. I just wondered whether or not that's a change because Aliir and Malikan haven't been in the team. He's kind of forced to do that role because there's no one else to do it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Now, Stephen, would you like to give us your first prediction of the match?
I will. This is my first prediction of the match, and it's a pretty obvious one. And I think the Swans will win the contested possessions easily.
Yeah, this is about as safe as a prediction as you could possibly get.
Yeah, I think so. And I deliberately did that this week because I've always put out a few big ones out there, but I'm actually going safe this week.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That's a good one.
And what about you, Justin? Have you got a prediction for this week?
Yeah, I've got dynamic duo, Heaney and Parker midfielders to go 15 clearances or more between them.
That's a good one.
So
that's not bad
they
at all.
both had... Heaney had 7, and I think Parker had the 5 or 6 the last time they played last year in round 7. And both of them have been in pretty good nick as far as clearances go, so I'm pretty confident about this one.
Yeah, I would too. I would be very confident.
Now, Stephen, second.
I'm going to go for a prediction that I hadn't thought about, but I'm going to go with this. This is a bold prediction.
Come on, don't do another Carlton one. Please don't.
No, I'm not going to. Josh Kennedy will break the record for most contested possessions this week.
Oh, well, he's going to have to rack up, 33 or 34?
Yep, that's right. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm going to put that out as my bold prediction.
That is way out there. He might not even get half of that in disposals.
Yeah.
No, it's a good one. I don't mind it. Yeah.
Yep. After last week's game, you will never have it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, my final prediction is going to be Battle of the Youngsters. I reckon it's going to be Will Hayward versus Eric Hipwood, and I've got Hayward by 1 goal.
So he'll only kick one, or you believe
he'll kick one more than Hipwood.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it could be. I would have actually said it would have been the old hand versus the new up-and-coming star, as in Buddy versus Hipwood.
No, I reckon if we're going Buddy versus Hipwood, Buddy's got that one pretty safe, so... We'll give Hayward and Hipwood a challenge. Hayward, you got to come through.
Yeah, I hope you're right, Justin. I'd love to see. What I would love to see is Hayward kick 5 or 6, and Buddy, and Buddy kick 5 or 6 as well. That would go down well.
Oh, I'd be happy if Buddy kicked 1 and Hayward kicked 6. That would be brilliant. Now, Stephen, do you have a sure thing of the weekend?
I do. Sad to say, we're not very good at winning these, and I'm going to say this: Brisbane will win the free kick count, because if I had a look through, Brisbane are doing very well in the free kick count.
Yeah.
So I think they will get over the top of us in that.
Yeah, it's funny when you look at the team stats. There's a lot of categories where both teams are actually quite evenly matched, but yeah, the Lions they're doing pretty well in that area.
Yes, they certainly are. Hopefully, it doesn't work out that way, but I reckon that's my sure thing for this week. And most at stake, Justin, what is it?
Look, it's a non-Swans one. Obviously, it would have been most at stake would have been the gridiron ball or Callum Mills' foot at one point. Obviously, that would have been a joke, but unfortunately, it's happened. It's a bit of a toss of the coin, really, between Richmond, St Kilda, Geelong, Carlton. Now, I'm actually going to go 2 teams. Most at stake would be either team losing by 15 or more goals. Really, the coaches' heads could be on the chopping blocks at that point, and their fans just won't turn out at all. I mean, Carlton's not pulling crowds at the moment, and they got absolutely slaughtered on the weekend, so they have to bounce back.
Yes, they do. But they did beat Essendon the week before. Remember?
Yeah,
we were at that game, Justin.
Yeah,
we were at that
it was a really good game, and then they just turned into an absolute bloody donkey the next week.
Yeah, can't believe it. I thought they'd turned it around a bit, actually, but no. Anyway, That's a good most at stake. I agree with you. I reckon the coaches there are in real trouble if they have a bad one this week.
Now, Stephen, what is your doomsday scenario?
My doomsday scenario fits with the Swans again, because I've tried to make everything about the Swans this week.
Yeah.
This is my doomsday scenario. This will break my heart. I will never, ever admit this, but I reckon I'd cry. If the Swans lose by a kick, with Luke Hodge kicking the sealer.
Oh, no, you can't.
I can. That is my doomsday scenario. Luke Hodge kicks the sealer and the Swans lose by less than a kick.
No, that would be a doomsday scenario. I don't know if I could back it up the following week and watch them. God, that would be tragic.
Yes, it would not be a good situation now, would it?
No, I like it though. That's a good doomsday if that happens. Jeez, it's not looking good.
No, it's not at all. But the Brisbane crowd would love it.
Yeah, they'd love it, of course.
Yes.
Swan supporters, they'd break down in tears.
Yeah, definitely would. No doubt about it.
Now, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on again. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you, Justin. It's always a pleasure to get on here on a Thursday night. I really enjoy it.
No, it's good. It's good. I love it. Now, guys, we will be back on Monday. We're going to discuss the wrap-up of the match and everything else that happened on the weekend and any sort of feedback from the club about the Callum Mills situation, which is a bit ridiculous. As always, you can follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We use the tag @TheSwansBlog, and you can always get in touch with us during the week with the hashtags SwansCast and SwansCast Extra. This has been Justin and Steve. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, go Swans.
Go Swannies.